Good morning, everyone. I trust that you've had a good week. Um, Last week we talked about, I guess, what it means to be Elohim, and pretty much the structure of this human and how it was structured, and we delved a little bit into the responsibilities that the human has in this earth to each other. We also talked about how the human is supposed to respond to those who are perceived within their own minds, the enemy, to others based upon socioeconomic status or racial background, and, among other things. So I want to see if there are questions that we have, because I want to share something else about that. I think this will segue into what Barbara is preparing to teach, if she has not already prepared it. And that is, if we look at how we are created, if we pay attention to the character of Elohim, what we begin to see is a picture developing of someone who is totally different than what we have been taught God is. And I would like, if you indulge me for a moment, to do a parallel, maybe, I don't know, of who Elohim is or what it is, as opposed to what we have been taught it is. First of all, when we look at the structure of the human, we cannot help but see that the human and Elohim are not different spiritual entities. They are the same. And the reason that we are not to lord ourselves over anyone is because the one who created us is not authoritative. There are no commands. There are landmarks. I was looking at that word, commandment. It speaks of landmarks, a journey. These are the things that you are to do. And in doing them and traveling this journey, there are landmarks. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Honor thy father and thy mother. These are landmarks. These are directions that are given for the purpose of guiding us along this journey. And if we follow these directions, we will find that our life will be a lot easier, and we will begin to see a change in the global family as you see a flower blooming. You don't actually see it bloom all at once. Some, of course, do, but a rose doesn't bloom all at once. But it unfolds, and it pace. And that unfolding at a slow pace is what is how change takes place when we follow the landmarks that are given to us. And what Barbara is going to on the landmark, we begin relating to us the commandments or the commandments we call them. We have been told that God is this entity that is outside of us and waiting to clobber us, waiting to punish us if we make a mistake. These commandments are there, as we have been taught, to judge us constantly and to keep us in a continuous state of fear and indecisiveness, to keep us in a state of flux, no stability, no shalom at all. That's what authoritarians do. That is not Elohim. That's the God that was created by those who don't even know who God is or even what the word Elohim means. And an example of what I'm saying, not even knowing what Elohim means, it is never translated or spoken of being polytheism. There's many gods. Even though Elohim, that I am, when you see I am on the Hebrew word, it is plural. And that the Elohim, or God, is never spoken of in those terms, as we have been taught in our various settings that we grew up in. And what that does, it actually limits us. And it also limits the one who we mirror from being able to help us travel this journey of life. What it does is put us under the control of those who are teaching it, especially those who are in the pulpit. If you really think about it, the most insincere people in the church are usually in the pulpit. The most people in the church are usually those in the pulpit. Because everything is about them, and that's not how this works. It does not mirror the one who created us in his image. Any questions so far? Comments? So, and looking at that, what I see with a greater clarity is one who is compassionate, one who is a protector, one who is a provider. What am I saying? We are protectors, we are providers, and we are compassionate. We are empathetic. Now think about those words. All of those words are spiritual. And these words describe how we are to respond to spiritual adversity or religious adversity, political adversity, ignorance. These words speak to how we are to respond to the concepts of Trump and McConnell, etc. These words describe who we are and how we are to live our lives. The reason it is so imperative that we continue the teachings that we do is because we are engaged in a continuous process of unraveling our character, our our personalities. The unraveling of character and personality can be found in the scriptures. When another curious word is tent. When it speaks of Sarah's tent, it speaks of the light in Sarah's tent. If you look for that word tent in the Hebrew and look for its root, what you will find is a shining light. And it speaks to a light that shines from afar. And that light is the beacon that guides us in our darkest hour. When we are experiencing our deepest pain, it is the light. This is the light that guides us. It's that light of which I speak. When it talks about the light in Sarah's tent, it's speaking to the reality that our guiding light is feminine energy, because from feminine energy comes all life. And that beacon of light keeps us stable and keeps us focused, because that light speaks to how it shows itself in the midst of the darkest nights. Like the nomads who traveled the desert could see the lights for miles away at night, the campfire. So when we feel as though we are being surrounded by darkness, or darkness is closing in on us or suppressing us, and I mean darkness in the classical sense that is used in our vernacular. When we feel that, then we are to look to the light, to look to the tent, to look to the place where we have been invited to come. Come unto me, all who labor. Come speaks to the idea of filling a void. It's not coming from, excuse me, it's not coming from one direction to another. It's not coming from a distance to a point. Come speaks to the idea of there being a void and you are filling it. When we stray away from this journey of compassion, this journey of loving kindness, this journey of provision and protection, when we stray from this journey, then the light is saying, come back, fill the void that you left when you strayed away. That's what this is speaking to in regards to how we are to live our lives. If we are pulled in a direction by a circumstance, that light says, come back, meaning that you have left the space, the spiritual space that you were occupying. And when you return to that spiritual space, it doesn't mean necessarily that the obstacle has been removed. It simply means that your mindset is in a place where it can better attend to the outcomes as a result of that obstacle being there. Questions or comments? Additions? So,
this is Barbara. Good morning.
Good morning.
A lot of the reading speaks of the dark night of the soul, which seems to be a little bit different than what you're talking about when you talk about the dark nights, which could relate to religious, political, social, economic kinds of adversity or darkness. How is the dark night of the soul different from those kinds of darkness? Do you follow what I'm asking?
Say again, dear?
Do you follow what I'm asking? The difference between the dark night of the soul and the darkness that we often are exposed to from those political, social, economic, religious adversities that you talk about, which can be darkness in their own right, too.
When I think about the dark night of the soul, my perception of it is this. And please, if you see it differently or see it more clearly, let me know. My perception of it is this. The dark night of the soul is the pain, the agony that we go through when our desire is to be purged from everything that is not reflective of the character in which we were created. The pattern that was used to create us is the Creator itself, and the dark night of the soul is when we get lost on this journey that we travel, and it's not designed to destroy us. It's simply designed to get our attention, and in getting our attention, it guides us to that light that we have distanced ourselves from. And once we travel this journey of the dark night of the soul, we see more clearly who we are, because we can see the mirror with our eye, as opposed to trying to see the mirror through suffering and blaming the one who created us for the pain and suffering and misery that we are enduring. If I had to compare it to something, I would compare it to the Native American or the African. When you reach a certain age, you are sent out into the wilderness, and you have previously been taught how to survive there, and you go through this period where you are entering adulthood. And that, to the Native American and the African, is one who is charged with taking responsibility for its action, but at the same time knowing that they are being guided by a greater light than what they are. Does that make sense? Oh, sorry, does that help you?
Yes, thank you.
Anyone want to add something to that, or see it more clearly than that, or differently than that, just don't understand
it? Good morning, everyone. Reverend Richard and others. One of the things that I'm trying to implement in my life is to see everything in life, or as much as I can, and see it as liability. And the more that I see life as liability, I'm responsible for some of it.
What do you mean by
the more training someone in their career or at the place I work.
Okay.
May I
address that a moment? Just that part.
Yes, sir.
You're saying, and you pick up from that. When we talk about liability, we are talking about something different. I got to take this, guys. Would you pause the recording? This is awesome. So, George, on this idea of liability, I forget where I was in addressing it before we paused the recording. However, the liability, spiritual liability, is much deeper than that. For example, you train in people on your job. The spiritual liability there has nothing to do with the training of them. It has everything to do with how you treat them while you train them. Even if they are obstinate or hard-headed, even if they dislike you, how do you treat them? Do you stay on this journey? Or are you still focused on the light of the tent in the distance? So spiritual liability is quite different from the idea of material or social liability, because social liability is based upon your feelings or how you perceive it. Material liability is based on money, property, as opposed to spiritual liability. Does that make sense to you, George?
And Rev, yeah, it makes sense, and that's the part that I was trying to convey. Because just as it relates to the training aspect, once I cut you loose, you just doing it by yourself. Yet, periodically, I still check on you. And it doesn't matter what the attitude of the person is. It doesn't matter anything about it.
That's where the rubber meets the road, George.
What's that?
That's where the rubber meets the road, right there. It doesn't matter what their attitude is. What matters is yours. So
and okay, though, we cool with.
Okay, go ahead.
No, it's just in looking at life as by way of liability. I do kind of see the world different. And just this week, I was talking to a friend of mine named Linwood, and he said, George, what's the line of demarcation to get on the rides at Universal Studios? And I didn't know what demarcation meant, but once I found out, once he explained it to me, I said, by looking at life as liability, you may have experiences like that. So when I can remove the George and Quicksand authoritarian person and become more like a supreme being, or get to where supreme being is, other supreme beings will find you, you will find them, you will get closer to the supreme being that gives you chance, gives you opportunity. And it's it's like another corner for me in life. Everything is different now.
May I address the idea of supreme being?
Yeah, go ahead, Rick.
We are Elohim, and the only entity that's supreme to us is someone who the Hebrews call Ein Sof, and that is the light intelligence that's greater than light intelligence. It's the source of everything that exists. We are not supreme to anything, because to say that we are a supreme being, there has to be an inferior being. And inferiority, spiritual inferiority, means that something was not created right. Spiritual inferiority does not exist because everything that was created the way it was supposed to be. The words supreme, superior, inferiority, these words are words that have been coined by men who have sought to exalt themselves above others. Supreme Court have no boundaries, do anything they want to, because they are the supreme judges. They are the top judges. And if you think about that, when you go to court, the only law that's in that court is that judge. The law books are not there. They're on the shelf. but they're only used as he sees fit or if he chooses to. So when we talk, I caution us into referencing Elohim or Yahweh as the supreme being. Does that make sense, George? And to others, of course. Comments, questions?
Well, Reb, I'll take that as poor choice of words on my part because how you broke it down.
No. George, I'm not letting you go there. This is not poor choice of words. This is what we've been taught. These are the words that we have been given to choose from. So you are not responsible for what you were taught or your life. What you're responsible for is finding the truth of it. Does that make sense? Hello? George, apparently I lost him.
No, I'm good, Reverend Rich. I just had it on move. I'm good with you, though.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? So, looking at looking at us rather, in the settings that we are currently in, and I don't mean the individual physical settings that we're in as much as I mean the spiritual settings that we're in, and the settings are a matter of thought, contemplation, a matter of seeking through meditation. That the space that we occupy in these settings dictates to us what is needed. And I don't mean dictates in terms of forcing us to deal with it. I mean it shows us what is needed to be dealt with. And in dealing with it, of course, we have our individual struggles, our individual pains. We have things going on in our nucleus, the nucleus of our families. We have all kinds of things that we are confronted with. However, the most important thing that we are confronted with is finding ourselves. Because we cannot be the physician who heals itself if we don't know what a physician is or does. We cannot function as humans if we don't understand that these physical shells that we live in is not the human. It is a combination of that shell and the spirit that makes us human. And without the body, we would not be human. Without the spiritual, the bodies would not exist. So it is a combination of the two that makes us human. So when we think about it that way, we begin to look at humanity differently. We begin to see that there is no such thing as coexisting in the sense that you do what you want to do and I do what I want to do. No. It's the idea of living in a world where every effort is about us to bring humanity to its senses so it can understand who it is. And when ST talk about the eighth sense, we will understand more clearly this whole idea of coming to your spiritual sense and what it means and what it looks like. Questions, comments?
This is Barbara. When you were talking about the shells that we occupy, this human shell, it reminds me of one of the guideposts in life, and that guidepost is don't lift up anything that's greater than your spiritual essence. And when we pour more of our time and our energy and our effort into what we are externally, how we look, what clothes we have on, what shoes we have on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, we pour more of our time and energy into that, the external shell, then what we're saying is that shell, we're bearing a false witness in a sense, because that shell is not really who we are. That's not the essence of who we are. So it just reminded me of a real-time example of idolatry, if you will, because we have to remember that we are the essence of Elohim, because we are Elohim. And so anything that's material that we put above that is idolatry.
That, what you're saying, Barbara, is that the way we focus on our body determines whether or not it's idolatry. No different than if you can see your body being the building, the church building, the synagogue, the mosque, and you give more reverence to that mosque than the people in it. You reverence that structure more than that church structure, more than the people in it. And you give more energy to the synagogue more so than you give to the people. That's idolatry. So is it any different for us to perceive our bodies in that way? Is that clearly idolatry, as I talked about with the church buildings, synagogues, etc.?
Yes, sir. Because that's physical. The difference is in what you just started talking about. It's a thought kind of thing. It is not a physical. We have to connect to that we are more than what we physically see, because our Creator is spiritual. Then our essence is spiritual. That's our true essence as well.
This is Ramel. I have a question with regards to this. So then, Miss Barbara, if we place more value in our position at our jobs as opposed to the job we're doing helping others, then that's idolatry too. Is that an example of idolatry too?
Yeah, it's similar to what the example that George was brought in. George's training folk. But the importance is what you do while you're training. It's not the position that you have. It is what you are doing, how you're connecting to others and showing them your inner self as well as theirs while you're training. So then that puts the job in perspective instead of it being the total focus of who you are. And you then don't run the risk of subordinating people to the extent that they feel that you are the superior and that's all you are.
Okay.
In other words, they look at you as the superior who thinks he knows everything, does everything, rather than as, wow, this is my trainer, and I relate to my trainer. I relate to my instructor very well because I am taught different things, and I'm able then to display what I learn because of what my trainer imparts in me.
Does that help you, Vermeer?
Most certainly. Thank you, Miss Barbara. Thank you, George.
Anyone else? I started at the onset talking about how we are not to be authoritarian. Yet we are told to have dominion over the earth. I want to address that for a moment. it says have dominion over the earth, not the people of the earth, but everything in this earth that is created, we are to have dominion over it. We are Elohim in a body. We are human. So that means that the human is the creator of everything in the earth. The attitudes of the beasts of the field, the attitudes of each other, and the everything that grows from the earth. Just as it starts its journey in darkness, so do we. Yet our journey is to have dominion as a king has dominion. And the dominion of the king, according to how they were to rule in the scriptures, is to make sure that they take care of their subjects, make sure that they are the protector of everyone and everything in their purview. So when we are told that we have dominion, we don't have to concern ourselves with what the animals are going to do, because they're going to respond to us. And the reason they're vicious is because of our responses to them are vicious. If our attitude, our energy is calming, then so is the animal's energy. We got out of kilter when we yield, when we submitted to becoming something that we are not, and that is becoming the same as our captors. To the reason that it has taken us so long to get to where we are in terms of embracing that we are Elohim is because rather than search the scriptures for ourselves and see that, we listened at someone tell us that you can't be God. We listened at someone tell us you can't be Jesus, yet Jesus said you can. We listened at those things, and what did we do as a result of that? We were surreptitiously being taught that our God are the enslavers. We have been surreptitiously taught that we are to strive to be in the image and likeness of our enslavers. However, when we started talking about being African without any spiritual understanding, it was always thrown at us, you playing the race card. But we still did not understand the totality of our essence. Still don't understand the totality, but a heck of a lot more than we did. When we embrace the spiritual nature of our essence, it is at that point when we began to see that making every effort, I think it was Audrey made this, to be something that we are not, is the very thing that keeps us in bondage. And it keeps us in spiritual bondage as it does in material bondage. And if you say you're free because you have what you need, you have what you need because you're allowed to have it. And freedom does not come based upon what someone allows you to do. Freedom is based upon the essence of how you are created. And freedom speaks to the idea of raising all ships as you raise up, lifting those who are downtrodden. So when we try to be as the enslaver, that is a perpetuation of making effort to be in the image and likeness of those who are the enslavers. And that is also sustained by the Paulinian messages that comes across the pulpit. It's also sustained by a lack of understanding of what prayer is. is also sustained by lack of understanding what it means to have dominion. Is also sustained by looking at the origin of all life anthropology. Let me use that word. Through anthropology, as opposed to spiritual. When we look at it through anthropology, we look at a physical origin. And and what we see in that physical origin is someone who's been demeaned, someone who's been exploited, and someone who's been grossly affected by that exploitation. However, when we look at it spiritually, we see the spiritual human who has been brought into this earth to create in its likeness, in its image. And it's not the color of the skin that we create. The image and likeness that we create is seen with a manifestation of the enslavers becoming protectors, becoming providers, becoming compassionate. Those are that's our responsibility in terms of creation in this earth. Why do I say that? Because as long as we allow the energy of destruction to run amok, the earth will always be in peril. However, when we embrace our responsibility and we begin to live in accordance with it, it is then that we cause people to show the world who they are, and that is the beginning of the diminishing of their control. Example, African Americans, black people vote as much as any other American, or something like that. In other words, we are not Americans. That was a Freudian slip, if there is anything. That's speaking to the depth of his heart. So those are the things that brings closure, that allows the energy of creating them in the image and likeness of Elohim. That gives us an opening to do that, because that opens up people's thoughts. And when those thoughts are opened, it gives us opportunity to infuse the energy of righteousness, the energy of being a shepherd, meaning that the energy of one who feeds and cares for and cuddles. That's our responsibility. And when we understand it this way, it makes it a heck of a lot easier for us to walk in those shoes. Questions, comments?
It seems to imply then that what we feel, some of us may have felt as frustration or Groundhog's Day or whatever, that it's just telling us it's the light that's showing us we're on the right track, because there would be no need for this much seeming chaos, and fighting back and push back if there was not a force, a spiritual force, pushing to dismantle all of these structures. And so the fight is vicious from a materialistic, physical perspective, because the spiritual force is just so dominating, if you will, in a sense. And so we see this, so we should take heart. We are doing what we need to be doing, and we should continue that spiritual pressure.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know how we miss the light? because we're looking for it in the wrong places. The greatest light that we have been shown is the light that has been put forth, or the light that shines from Trump and McConnell. That's the greatest light we've been shown. The light of the Proud Boys, the light of the 3%ers. Why do I say that? Sounds so crazy. However, if light is enlightenment, then those lights are enlightening us as to what needs to be changed. It enlightens the whole world to what must be changed. And in doing so, the global family begins to look for change. And the change that we make available comes to them based upon the energy that we put in the macro. Just like I made the statement, when we see God, God won't look like what we think it is. Light doesn't look like what we think it is either. Yes, the scriptures enlighten us, but they enlighten us so we are equipped to deal with the issues in this earth. It enlightens us as to what a creator is, what Elohim is, the character of Elohim. It enlightens us to that. So that thing that appears to be darkness in terms of Trump and the rest of the people I named is actually light. A dark light, a different type of light, a light that perpetuates confusion, racism, misogynism, all those isms. Does that make sense, guys?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So
I just never saw it. I just never saw it in that light of light. You know, I when I think about light and light exposing what's hidden in the dark, that which has been hidden in the dark. But I've never thought of it as light exposing light, unless you're talking about light that's hidden under a bushel or under something. You can see something and know that there's something in there, but it does not have the brightness of full light being shown upon it.
yes, thank you. It is responsibility to expose those people who are prevails of all those isms. We are to expose them to who they are. They are Elohim and don't know it because they've only looked at the physical image of self, protected the physical image of self, as opposed to looking inwardly and seeing who they are. There's one day we'll talk about this whole thing of Christianity and its origin. Let me just say this briefly. Christianity was never organized for the purpose of bringing people to salvation. Christianity was organized to bring people to a place of submission to another group of people, while enriching those people who you are submitting to. Are you able to see that? All you have to do is look at the history of it. And at that point, we see it. So, having said all of this morning, I want to ask you guys if there are questions, comments about. ST, are you on? Okay. I'll send a text to the teachers, as well as I'll contact ST, because I do believe that the eighth sense and understanding it, along with understanding what we call the Ten Commandments, when they're actually directions for our journey. When we understand those principles, it gives us a tighter grip, a tighter hold onto who we are. It gives us a clearer picture. It gives us a sense of power, or exposes us, rather, to that power that we are, abilities that we possess from the beginning. Those powers and are their purpose of creating, of bringing out of people understanding of who they are. Would you mute your phone, please? Any questions or comments? Would you mute your phone, please? Would you check your phones to make sure they're muted? Thank you. The last thing I want to say, unless there are questions and comments, is this.
Could you kind of repeat what you said
About?
just now? I didn't quite get it all because of the noise in the background.
Can someone trigger what I said?
I think you were talking about Christianity, that it was not organized, never organized, to bring people to salvation.
Thank you. Christianity was organized for the express purpose of bringing people to a place of submission. You got it, Audrey?
Meaning to them, not to the Creator?
Right.
Okay, all right.
Why does the word Pope speak to the idea of a substitute for God? And all Christianity came from there. Even the images that are created by quote-unquote Christians, the images of Tarzan swinging through the jungle and controlling everything in the jungle, and the African controlling nothing, not even their own lives, because he's their God, their deliverer. These things were purposely done. Amen. These things were purposely done. It may seem as though it's all political, and that's what they would like you to believe. It's not. It is spiritual. This is spiritual warfare. And the spiritual warfare that we are engaged in is a resistance to understanding that we are Elohim, we are creators. And the reason that all life in the human had its origin in Africa is because it is the African who is the primary creator, teacher, so that everybody in the earth can live in peace and harmony. Why is it that everything that we study, that everything we build upon, mathematics, astrology, anatomy, on and on and on, all of these things that we've learned came from the same place. If that's not the place of creation, the depth of of life in this earth, what is it? Suppose for a moment that all life started in Africa. What you did, it started in Africa. However, suppose that all of these entities that are in bodily form are here, came from us, so that we have the same opportunity that our Creator had when we were fashioned, when we were molded, when we were created in its image. Suppose that the African is the image of the human and is responsible for creating everything in bodily form, creating it in such a manner that it becomes human as well. Half the work has been done, and that is the spirit that lives in everybody. Our objective is to take the energy of the spirit and shape it, fashion it into emotions of compassion, into peace, fashion it in such a manner that the swords will be beaten into plowshares, that the instruments of war and destruction will not prevail in this earth. Suppose that's what we are to do, and that is the reason all life started there, because this is what the first quote-unquote human came from. And if we look at what has been created in the earth, the creation of Europe is guns. Guns. Disruptive instruments. Instruments to end life, not to perpetuate it. Our mission is to redirect that energy. Our mission is to present a mirror that causes them to see who they are. And I use the word them. I'm talking about the concepts that are perpetuated by a group of people. Suppose for a moment that the reason that we are so forgiving is because we forgive as our Father forgives us. We have the power to forgive these entanglements. We are so forgiven. These are subjects of creation that has been given us to be as our Creator in this earth. Suppose those are our realities and we have missed them. And we miss them because every time we talk about something like that, the first thing that comes to our mind is something that was developed in a reprobate mind, and that is race. And we are uneasy talking about it. And especially as African Americans, we think, well, that's politics. It ain't religion. That's not Jesus. That's not church. Well, who told you what church and Jesus and religion is? Who told you that? Who painted the picture for you? You have to look at the picture for yourself. And when you look at that picture of the scriptures for yourself, then you begin to see this is not about race. It's about righteousness. Got your R's. Would you please mute your phones? Am I making sense, guys?
When you said that, it reminded me of the remarks. Who told you you were naked? Same kind of
Yes.
nuance there.
Didn't see it, but yeah, you're right. I see it now. That's what we have to ask ourselves. And then Think about it this way. As we have progressed on this journey, the Creator has laid things in our pathway to give us an in-depth understanding of what the instructions of the journey, what those instructions are. And we are understanding them more and more, which means that we are fulfilling the mission for which we were created. The last example I want to give you is this. The things that has been done to keep us spiritually ignorant and physically in bondage. I was talking to someone, I was telling them, we were just talking in general, and I said to them, do you know how enslaved people built wealth after slavery? How they sustained themselves? They had a cash crop. And that crop that they raised is a crop that not only sustained them, but laid the foundation for Greenwood District and Durham, those centers of physical wealth. That cash crop was watermelon. And a reprobate mind said, we got to separate them from this cash crop. So they started putting images of us with thick red lips, eating watermelons and spitting seeds, and grinning and being lazy with watermelons. All these things, and it worked because we as a people moved away from our cash crop because we began to be ashamed of that. And when we moved away from that, we did it because we were treating it the same way that we were told to treat it, as an image of degradation. The same thing happened with the jockey in the front yard. It's called a black Sambo. It's a jockey. And that jockey says, this is a safe house. If you're escaping from slavery, you can come in here and be safe. And they took that and put it on their lawn, called it Sambo, and created an image of negativity, and we walked away from that. The cash crop that sustained us and the jockey that took us to safety as we escaped. Questions, comments? No questions, no comments. I hope today has enlightened you. Well, I don't hope it has. I know it has. Because light always shows itself. The question is whether or not we're searching for it. Enjoy the rest of your day. And teachers, I'm going to send you a text message in a few moments about our meeting this evening, okay? Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Everyone have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, family.
Have a good day. Bye.
Not gonna make it. Not gonna make it.